The mate bond happened in a single heartbeat, the way lightning happens, too fast to stop, too bright to ignore. Cale Ashworth felt it the moment Wren stepped into the great hall of Northbrook territory. He was the Alpha King, seated at the high table during a gathering of pack leaders, and she was nothing more than a healer sent from a smaller, weaker pack to deliver medicine for the winter sickness spreading through the border villages. She did not expect to be noticed. She carried her basket of herbs with her head down, moving quickly so she would not draw attention. But his wolf noticed. His wolf rose inside him with a force that nearly knocked the breath from his lungs, and every instinct in his body turned toward her like a compass finding north. Mate. Wren felt it too. She stopped walking. Her basket nearly slipped from her hands. She looked up, and their eyes met across the crowded hall, and for one impossible second, the noise of the room disappeared. There was only him. Only her, only the invisible thread pulling tight between two souls that had never met before, but somehow already belonged to each other. Then Cale looked away. It was such a small motion, a turn of the head, a tightening of the jaw. But Wren felt it like a blow. She did not understand yet what it meant, only that something warm and hopeful had opened inside her chest, and now it was closing again, slowly, painfully, like a door being shut by someone who did not care who stood on the other side. She did not know that Cale's father, before his death, had arranged a marriage alliance with the Redthorn Pack, a powerful and dangerous group whose territory bordered Northbrook's most vulnerable lands. She did not know that Cale had spent every day since his father's passing trying to hold his pack together, trying to prove he was strong enough to lead, trying to convince the older alphas that he was not too young, too soft, too untested for the crown he wore. She did not know that a mate bond, especially one to a healer from a small, unimportant pack, could unravel everything he had worked to build. That night, under the full moon, Cale did something that would haunt him for years. He stood before the gathered pack, called Wren forward though she did not want to come, and rejected the bond in front of everyone. He said the words clearly, formally, the way tradition demanded. "I reject you as my mate." He said them without looking at her face, because he knew if he looked, he would lose his resolve. The hall went silent. Wren stood frozen, her basket of herbs forgotten at her feet, her whole body trembling, not from cold, but from the shock of rejection tearing through the fresh, fragile bond that had only existed for a few hours. Rejection was not just words, it was a wound. It cut through the space where the bond had begun to grow, leaving raw and jagged edges behind. She did not cry, not there, not in front of them. She picked up her basket, straightened her spine, and walked out of the hall with as much dignity as she could gather. But everyone who watched her leave saw the way her hands shook. 3 weeks later, Cale married the daughter of the Redthorn Alpha. The wedding was grand, full of political speeches and careful smiles, and Cale stood at the altar feeling nothing at all. Not joy, not relief, not even the satisfaction of having secured his pack's safety. He felt hollow. His wolf deep inside him felt worse. It paced and snarled, and refused to settle, as if it knew that the woman standing beside Cale was not the one it had chosen. Wren did not attend the wedding. She had already decided to stay in her small cabin at the far edge of Northbrook territory, the land her grandmother had left her, tucked between old pine trees, where the wind moved gently, and no one bothered her. She could have left. She could have gone back to her home pack, far from the man who had humiliated her before hundreds of witnesses. But something kept her rooted there. Perhaps it was stubbornness. Perhaps it was the quiet hope, buried so deep she barely admitted it to herself, that the bond meant something even if he refused to honor it. She became the healer for the villages near her cabin. She tended to sick children, delivered babies, set broken bones, and brewed remedies for fevers. The people came to trust her gentle hands and her calm voice. She built a life that did not depend on Cale Ashworth at all, but her body remembered what her mind tried to forget. The first full moon after the rejection, she heard something outside her cabin door. A low, mournful sound, half howl and half whimper, rising and falling in the darkness. She rose from her bed, heart pounding, and looked through the window. There, lying just outside her door, was a great gray wolf. Larger than any wolf she had ever seen, with fur the color of storm clouds and eyes that glowed faintly gold in the moonlight. She recognized those eyes immediately. They were Kale's eyes, wearing his wolf's shape. She did not open the door. She stood at the window, one hand pressed against the cold glass, and watched him cry until dawn broke, and he rose, shook himself, and disappeared back into the trees. She told herself it meant nothing. Wolves howled at the moon. It was natural. It was instinct. It did not mean he regretted what he had done. But it happened again the next month, and the month after that, and the month after that, until years passed, and every full moon without fail, Kale's wolf broke free from whatever control Kale tried to hold over it, and ran the long distance to her cabin, lying outside her door and crying until morning. The pack began to whisper about it. No one could explain why the Alpha King's wolf abandoned him every full moon to visit the healer he had rejected years before. Some said it was proof that rejected bonds never truly died. Others said it was a curse, a punishment for breaking something sacred. Kale's new wife, Sable, heard the rumors too, and they filled her with quiet, simmering resentment. She had married a king, not a man whose heart, and apparently whose wolf, belonged to someone else. Kale tried everything to stop it. He chained himself in his private chambers during the full moon. He asked the pack's strongest warriors to restrain him. Nothing worked. His wolf was stronger than his will, and every month, without exception, it broke free and ran to her. What Kale did not fully understand, what his advisors only whispered about in hushed and worried tones, was that a rejected bond does not simply fade away. It festers. It weakens the one who caused the rejection, slowly, from the inside out, unless it is somehow resolved. Kale began to feel it in small ways at first, a tiredness that sleep could not fix, a dullness in his senses, a heaviness in his chest that had nothing to do with his lungs. He hid it well. He was skilled at hiding things. But his most trusted advisor, an old wolf named Bramwell, saw it clearly and warned him more than once. "Your wolf is dying a little more each year, my king," Bramwell said one evening, watching Kale struggle to hide a tremor in his hand. "A bond does not simply disappear because you commanded it to. It waits. It suffers. And so do you." Kale refused to listen. He told himself he had made the right choice for his pack. He told himself the alliance with Redthorn had kept them safe from 3 separate conflicts over the years. He told himself that a king could not afford weakness, and love, especially love for a healer with no political power, was the greatest weakness of all. But every full moon, his wolf reminded him of what he had truly lost. Ren, for her part, grew quieter over the years. She never married. Several good men from nearby packs had shown interest in her, kind men who would have cared for her well, but something in her simply could not open that door again. She told herself it was because her work kept her too busy. She told herself many things, but late at night, when the moon was full, and she heard that familiar mournful howl outside her window, she knew the truth she refused to speak aloud. Then, in Kale's 9th year as Alpha King, a challenge came. A rival pack leader named Dorian, sensing weakness in Kale that others had begun to notice too, called for a formal challenge to the throne. Pack law allowed it. If the current Alpha showed signs of failing health or failing strength, another could challenge for leadership. Dorian had been watching Kale for months, watching the way he moved slower than he once did, the way his once sharp eyes had grown tired. The challenge would be settled the traditional way, through a contest of strength and endurance, watched by the entire pack. Kale knew he was not as strong as he once was. His wolf had been fighting itself for years, torn between duty and yearning, and the strain had worn them both thin. But he could not refuse the challenge without losing his crown entirely. So he agreed, and the date was set, the night of the full moon, when wolves were said to be at their strongest. It was, perhaps, the worst possible timing. The contest began at dusk, in the open fighting grounds outside the Great Hall, with the whole pack gathered to watch. Kale fought well at first, his years of training carrying him through the early rounds. But as the moon rose higher, full and bright, and pulling at every wolf's instincts, Kale felt his control slipping. His wolf, sensing the moon's call, began to fight him from the inside, desperate to break free and run toward the one place it always went on this night. In the middle of the match, with Dorian pressing his advantage, Kale's wolf finally won the internal battle. It surged forward, took over completely, and abandoned the fight entirely. The pack watched in stunned silence as their alpha king turned and ran, not toward victory, not toward defending his crown, but away from the fighting grounds entirely, disappearing into the tree line at a speed that left even the fastest warriors behind. Dorian was declared victor by default, but no one cared about that anymore. The entire pack, driven by curiosity and disbelief, followed the direction Cale had run. They found him collapsed at Ren's door, breathing hard, his great gray form trembling in the moonlight, too exhausted even to howl. Ren opened the door. She had heard the commotion, the sound of many feet approaching, and she stepped outside to find her healer's instincts taking over before anything else could. She knelt beside the collapsed wolf, checking his breathing, his heartbeat, the way his ribs rose and fell too quickly. "You foolish man," she whispered, not sure if she meant Cale or his wolf, or both. "You foolish, foolish man." She did not invite him softly into her home out of rekindled love. She did it because she was a healer, and healers did not turn away the wounded, no matter how much history stood between them. She brought him inside, gave him water, waited through the night as his breathing slowly steadied. By morning, Cale had shifted back into his human form, weak and pale, sitting on the floor of the cabin he had watched from a distance for 9 long years. Ren sat across from him, arms crossed, refusing to let sympathy soften her expression entirely. "You have a lot to explain," she said quietly. Cale, stripped of his throne for the moment, and every ounce of pride that came with it, told her everything. The alliance, the fear, the belief that he had no choice, and the slow, terrible cost his wolf had paid every month since. He did not ask for forgiveness right away. He simply told the truth, all of it, for the first time in 9 years. Ren listened in silence. When he finished, she did not rush to comfort him. "You broke something that was never only yours to break," she said. "It was mine too, and you never once asked what I wanted." "I know," Cale said. "I have known for 9 years, every full moon, whenever my wolf carried me here without my permission. It took time after that." Ren did not simply forgive him because his wolf had suffered, or because he finally admitted his mistake. She made him prove, through many small honest conversations over the following weeks, that he understood what he had truly cost them both. Cale ended his political marriage, a decision that shocked the pack but surprised no one who had watched the rumors unfold over the years. He stood before the full pack once more, this time without hiding behind formal words or careful distance, and told them the truth about the bond he had rejected, and the pain it had caused. Then he turned to Ren, who stood at the edge of the gathering, and knelt before her the way he never had 9 years earlier. "I ask you now," he said, "not as your king, but as the man whose wolf loved you every single day I was too afraid to admit it myself. Will you accept the bond I once broke?" Ren looked at him for a long moment, remembering every full moon, every mournful howl outside her door, every year she had spent healing others, while quietly aching herself. "Yes," she said finally. "But this time, we build it together. Slowly. Honestly. No more hiding." And for the first time in 9 years, when the next full moon rose, there was no howling outside a lonely cabin door. There was only quiet and warmth, and 2 souls finally allowed to be whole.